Good morning, everybody, and good evening for any of you joining us from further to the east. My name is Mish Hamid, and I'm the project manager of the GEF International Waters Learn project. And together with my colleagues, I will be facilitating this panel number 3 of the Global Ocean series. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I thank you all for joining. Thank you to our participants. I see over 37 of us at this point. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to our supporting partners. I would encourage you, just some procedural information before we begin. Please see the Global Ocean Series website for all the speakers' bios, details about partners, and planned future events, including the panel number 4, which we'll talk more about when we close the session. Just a reminder to please everyone mute upon your entry and stay muted to ensure the best audio. We are recording this session. For any issues or general comments, please use the chat box, and my colleagues and I will be monitoring that. And when you arrive, if you haven't done it already, please do introduce yourself and your affiliation in that chat box, because you may not be able to see all the other participants, but however, we can see you. So please do introduce yourself there in the chat box. For questions to the panel, please use the Q&A tool, which is just above it. There are these 2 circles. We hope to have time for plenty of audience interaction in this session today. And when you've entered a question, please indicate if you want to ask your question directly to one of the specific panelists or just to the panel. As many of you know, we had hoped to have this meeting, this Global Ocean Series, as a face-to-face event in Rhode Island in March. Unfortunately, as you all are well aware, we were not able to do that. However, we did feel it was important to advance this conversation about, for example, the Ocean Decade for Sustainable Development, and specifically to talk about linkages between local science and management and the work being done by many organizations and researchers and efforts to address larger ocean scales, particularly the work on large marine ecosystems. In short, there have been successes at many scales, and we need to build upon and bridge between local actions and actions efforts at the LME scale. We have some goals for this Global Ocean Series. One is to better understand UN goals like Sustainable Development Goals, the Ocean Decade for Science, objectives, and connections to work being done. To share science and management efforts and to link across scales from the LME to the local or community level, and to discuss key aspects or aims for improvement in the immediate and long term, up to 10 years. This series is being organized by the University of Rhode Island's Coastal Resource Center, the Walton Foundation, and our IW Learn project, which is funded by the Global Environment Facility, implemented jointly by the United Nations Development Program and UN Environment, and executed by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. The first session provided a wonderful backdrop for these local and global perspectives, and a second session for some of you last night or late in the evening focused on Asia and the Pacific. And today we're going to focus on the Americas, Africa, and Europe as a regional panel, and to discuss some national and local projects or efforts also at the regional level. And then finally, on June 26th, we'll have a 4th panel session focused on the U.S. Northeast Shelf, also as a case study. So today, just to recap how this will go, we're going to hear some key messages about what's happening at the global level. I'll play a very short video recapping what happened in our first panel, which was about 3 weeks ago. And we'll have brief introductory presentations from our first round of panelists, efforts at the local level. And then we'll have some Q&A also with all of you, the audience. And then in the second round, we'll look at the LME scale, and we will have a couple of panelists from there. Now, having said that, this all started with that first panel, and I want to quickly share with all of you, and I hope this will work. My colleagues will inform me if it's not. I have compilated a few short messages from our illustrious panel, opening panel keynotes, and I will play that right now for all of you to hear. And just give me 1 second. So I apologize. I hope you all can still hear me. I apologize to our opening panel for some rough edits there. But nevertheless, I hope you all got a good gist of some of the key messages coming out of that opening panel. If you are interested, we will be publishing an article together with our colleagues summarizing that opening panel for all of you and share that with all of you. So without further ado, I would like to turn to our session moderator, Mr. Christian Severin, Senior Environmental Specialist and Head of the International Waters Focal Area of the Global Environment Facility, who is going to take over from this point. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Mish, and thank you so much to all of you for spending time this morning, afternoon, evening to join this panel. I see that we are now just at the same level as our evening panel were last night, so we're not trailing behind there. That's good news. I think that the messages we just heard kind of set the scene extremely well. I mean, there's no need for us to stop saying that this is still, 2020 is still the year, the super year for the ocean and the environment. We're just not meeting to celebrate that, but a lot of these targets, and especially around the SDGs, that they are maturing this year. So we still need to continue our efforts in delivering against that. The GEF, as some of you would know, have over the last roughly 30 years been investing more than $1.1 billion in marine transboundary marine projects to leverage more than $7.7 billion. So it's a fairly large portfolio that has been engaged with 120 some countries around the world. One of the things to me is when we look at the SDGs and SDG 14 and its sub-targets in particular, I really believe that they can only be achieved if we're able to address the complex and multifaceted issues leading to ocean degradation in a coordinated way through strong and vibrant partnerships, as we heard them elaborated on over the last couple of sessions. Well-functioning transboundary ocean governance schemes are simply crucial to achieve long-term sustainable use of our ocean resources. And so this is actually what we're going to be hearing today. We're going to be hearing some examples from the ground. To begin with here, a couple of local implementation, if you will, of these larger regional frameworks that sitting within the large marine ecosystem, but also in a way implementing some of these strategic action programs that countries have agreed upon. Directly, indirectly, it doesn't really matter. It's about working in a coordinated way through these larger goals. So without, I can talk about it for a while, but let me stop right there. So without further ado, I want to introduce our two first speakers that are going to be up here. I think, Mish, you didn't explain this, but we are trying to be pushing the limit a little bit for what's possible with presentation styles. We all know the classic PowerPoint presentation. We have in our international waters conferences tried to push that a little bit with something with a little more snappy version of Pecha Kucha, as it's called. So it's a presentation style, but it's still the PowerPoints, but just a little more flashy, a little faster, hopefully a little more dynamic, so to keep everybody awake, evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. So we'll try this here. It's the first time ever we've done this online, so please bear with us if we fail. I hope not, but let's see what happens. So first, we're going to be hearing from Nyayana, Marine Policy Officer in Madagascar, which is going to be followed by Serafin Didi, that's Executive Director of the Fisheries Committee in the Western Central Gulf of Guinea. So as you know, these two examples here are also falling within some of the larger frameworks of the large marine ecosystem investments that we have been doing in the GF, and countries are pushing this forward. So, Yanni, would you please? And Mish, I guess you have to coordinate if this works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Greeting from Madagascar. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this Global Ocean Series, linking large marine ecosystems to local science and management for sustainable development. Okay, so my name is Nyayana Janarville. I work for USAID High-Top Program as a Marine Policy Officer, which is linked to the Coastal Resources Center, University of Rhode Island, which is part of the consortium of implementing this USAID-funded project in Madagascar. Next slide, please. Okay, so before everything, I would like to give a brief overview of Madagascar geography and characteristics. So Madagascar is located on the West Indian Ocean region. It is the fourth largest island in the world, with this 1,200,000 kilometers squared of economic exclusive zones, and with 5,000 kilometers of coastline. Madagascar is a developing country where 10% of its inhabitants live in coastal areas and depend on small-scale subsistence and artisanal fisheries. Madagascar is one of the world's marine biodiversity hotspots. There we have the largest coral reef, a second one after the Coral Triangle, with its 3,400 kilometers of coral reef. It represents 25% of the West Indian Ocean coral reef. We have as well 2% of the world's mangrove, with 8 of 9 species located on the West Indian Ocean. And apart from that, we have as well as ecosystem the seagrass bed and more than 200 islets around Madagascar. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to share first some challenges on managing LMEs in Madagascar. So we have this adverse governance condition. We have a weak science-based marine management decision-making. We didn't implement yet the marine spatial planning, while there is already all of the sectoral activities already establishing their activities. The government is exceeded by the cost of conservation that can lead on a weak law enforcement. And the existing management measure is quite ineffective, such as marine protected area or this law of management transfer of management of the resource to the local community. In the other hand, we have a disadvantaged coastal population. Very poor coastal community, among the poorest in Madagascar. They are isolated and they have a lack of management capacity, where the customary law as well they use to manage the area is quite weak. However, the coastal communities have a very galloping population growth, about 2.5% compared to the average of 1% in the whole area, and there is an unmet need for family planning services. As a consequence, we have an unsustainable exploitation of resources. Among others, we have overfishing, destructive fishing practices. We have a conflictual overlapping fishing zones between industrial and traditional, and between traditional as well. Mangroves are deforested. There are mining on islands, and a lack of management plan. And apart from that, we have these negative externalities from land-based activities, all of that. I would like to share with you two initiatives linked to this contribution of Madagascar to the UN Sustainable Development Goals in connection with this decade on ocean sciences for sustainable development. So first, we have this Northern Mozambique Channel initiative. This big seascape is located in the north part of the Mozambique Channel, and it is a model of integrated ocean management based on blue economy. It involves 7 countries, and it represents the second richest on the world in terms of coral reef. So this is a partnership approach between involved countries with support of NGOs such as WWF and Cordio. The second initiative in Madagascar is this called Promise of Sydney initiative. This is a commitment during the Sydney World Park Congress in 2014. It's about tripling the surface of marine protected area in Madagascar. That corresponds as well with the achievement of the Aichi Target 11, about protecting 10% of the economic exclusive zones in Madagascar. I would like to share a little bit more about this Promise of Sydney. To achieve this goal, Madagascar started with doing this marine conservation planning. It's about identifying the required components of resilient and sustainable marine protected area network. And that includes as well the other effective area-based conservation measure. And the next step action is about generating broad consensus on the network and tools needed for its adoption in Madagascar. It is still an ongoing process in Madagascar. About the science and management efforts, I would like to share with you what is done by the project I work for, the USAID High-Top program. So it is about enhancing and reinforcing local level outcomes by creating an enabling and empowering environment with as key pillars the sound policy and law and the capable stakeholders. So as preconditions for this project is improved incentive structures, access to effective use of data, and the increased trust between stakeholders. So as part of this, project has terrestrial and marine sites, but as a contribution to the marine activities, we have coastal zone management, starting with the documentation of coastal and marine tenure rates, and supporting the development of fishery management plan guide. Then progressing to stakeholder engagement, outreach, collaboration, and facilitation. So we have main two activities, supporting the integrated mangrove management, supporting the development of a national strategy, payment for ecosystem services, and national accounting. And in terms of fisheries management, we have conducting training on applied technical and data collection and stock assessment, and facilitating the implementation of the regulated fishing zones. We have as well a marine coastal tool development for the USAID High-Top data portal related to fisheries, coastal processes, MPA and LME tenure. And we have as well marine capacity development for MPAs and this locally managed marine area network through development of management tools like measuring effectiveness tracking tool and institutional strengthening of this network. And finally, a PHE, operational research. So PHE is population health and environment, where it is about connecting natural resource management with health activities. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. This is challenging to do a picture coach up. I know it's your first time here, so thank you so much. That was really, really well done. I appreciate it. So, Serapin, I know you also have a presentation for us around the Gulf of Guinea.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Serapin Dedi. I'm from the Fisheries Committee for the West Central Gulf of Guinea, which is in West Africa. And as a regional fisheries body, our fisheries bodies belong to the Guinea Current Large Marine System. So we are working together to stop illegal fishing, which is our entry point for managing the resources and the ocean environment. Next. Next. So can we move the presentation ahead, please?
I don't know, Miss, do you have control? I don't have it.
I have the control. Do you see?
So what I want to highlight is that the Central Gulf of Guinea is a coastal part of the Africa where fishing activity is very, very important. And we can see here 1 month activity for reefers in the region, which means that there is a lot of pressure on the resources, and we have to take action. When you talk about resources, of course, it's linked to the environment, it's linked also to the human condition in this area. So as a fisheries body, we are very concerned by taking action in this area. Next. So you can see the number of challenges that the resources and the ocean is facing in West Africa. I can just mention a few of them here. IUU fishing, overfishing. We have also destructive fishing gear that is used in the region. We have maritime security that is a key problem in our region. Recently, it's more and more says that the Gulf of Guinea is a higher risk zone for active maritime activities. Governance issues and corruption is also one of the issues that we are facing, and we have a low political priority in this region. So all these challenges put together is very, very difficult to manage the resources and the ocean concerned in this region. Next. So to address all these challenges, we have set up a regional fishery body that is comprised of 6 countries: Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. And together we are working as a body, and this organization is based in Tema. And to address all the challenges that I mentioned in a proper manner, we have developed our first strategy plan that started from 2011 to 2020. And we have identified 6 priority areas. Next. Among the priority areas, we have issues with governance. Can we move to the next? Can you move to the next session, please? Next slide. Okay, the fisheries committee here is aimed to promote cooperation among the countries, and for that reason, we are dealing with fisheries policy and governance as first area. We have issue with conservation and sustainability. We have also aimed to improve fisheries management, and our focus area currently are next. Our focus area and achievement, I will go through them quickly. The first point that we have achieved right now is to develop a fisheries management plan for the region. And this fisheries management plan of the region has been built on what Ghana has initiated as a national level with the USAID project that we call Sustainable Fisheries Management Plan. And this activity was for us, for the region, a pilot activity that has been used to address all the issue of management plan in the region. So based on the experience of Ghana, we have been built this regional fisheries management plan, and now all the 6 countries are working together to take decisions on management decisions, like at closing season for the fisheries activities in the region. Next. Next. Next picture, please.
There is a short delay, Serafin. You should have it.
Okay, so through this regional management plan, we want to encourage member states to take action to combat, to manage the fisheries. And we have another mechanism, a regional mechanism that is built of the national agencies' commitment that we call tax Africa Task Force, and this West Africa, the FCS of the 6 countries that are working strongly together to address all illegal fishing and related activity crimes in the region. So we regularly meet 2 times a year to discuss all common issues regarding to combating IUU. This task force also aims to operationalize all regional conventions that FCWC is committed, and also FCWC has proposed to the member countries. So it's a very important platform for us. It helps to go through all the cases of illegal activities. We link also to that all criminality activity that we are facing in the region. So it's basically started with combating IUU, but it's also addressed all illegal aspects. In addition to the regional task force we also built at national level a national working group with all the national agencies that are committed in combating IUU, so that they will be trained and advised to take action when it's appropriate. So they are regularly having workshops to train them and on best practices to take action where it's needed. So this is also very important, because at country level, if the people are not very well trained and they don't understand very well the issues that we are concerned, it's difficult for them to take action when we have cases, like it could be a case on IUU, but it's also a case on environment or any of the other kind of cases that need to be addressed regionally at national level. So the National Working Group is regularly meeting. We also develop what we call a communication platform, because as the region and promoting regional cooperation, it's really important to have a regular communication with the member states. So we have a dedicated platform where we use to share all needful information to address IUU. It's also a framework for us to archive all the documents that is produced for the different projects that we are managing. So we have a toolbox, we have a manual that all together are put on the website of FCC to help and build capacity of the member states. So capacity building is very, very, very important for us to achieve our goal. Other point that we are addressing is to the legal review of the legal framework of each of the country. All the countries are committed to combat IUU, but or to protect also the ocean, but sometimes the legal framework is weak to address the issues. So we normally do the review and try to harmonize the legislation within the country as well as the sanction, because we, as a region, we need to go together to address all the cases. And when one country is weak, it's also area where sometimes illegal vessel or illegal fishing vessel used to go. So to avoid this case of gaps among the country, we are really concerned by harmonizing the legislation of the countries so that all common violations are addressed in the proper ways. So, in addition to the legal framework, we also developed recently the regional vessel monitoring center. This regional monitoring center is our new tool that we are implementing to monitor all the vessels in the region. All the fishing vessels that are operating in the region will be connected at the regional level. So national VMS system are connected to the regional VMS system so that we can have a global overview of all the vessels operating in this region. So countries are contributing in the regional system by connecting their national system to the regional system. And this is very, very important to address and have an overview of all the vessels operating in the region, but also to address all cases of illegality that happen in the region. And this regional VMS system has been recently funded under the PESCAO project that's supporting, it's the European Union project funding for West African countries. So this is a new tool that we are implementing, and it's help to alert member country on any cases of illegal fishing or vessel that is not well flagged in the region and operating. So it's help also to make the regular report on the vessel activities in the region. So the collaboration comes from member country, national level, but also international level. So we, as activity, we also commit, engage the member country to be able to contribute in the international instrument. So we are very concerned by the post-tech measure agreement. From now, we have 6 countries that operating the West Africa platform, and 5 out of the 6 have already ratified the post-tech measure agreement. So we are now in the position to implement fully this instrument as a key instrument to combat illegal fisheries and to lock the door to the ports, to the different ports, to all vessels that are not operating in the proper manner. It's also a way for us to share the information in the region, because the international tools give priority to the sharing of the information within the region. So we work also within the region, but out of the region where it's needed. So we are collaborating with different partners, EGF, the NOAA, ICAT organization, all these institutions are working together so that we are linked to them also. So from national to regional, at international level, we are all linked to all the system that is, all the priority area to be addressed. So from now, we aim to continue to increase political awareness and support to the member country to address monitor control activity, but also globally to develop sustainable fisheries management plan and its implementation. Because out of Ghana, who has developed this management plan and our regional plan that we are implementing, none of the country, the rest of the country, have a national dedicated plan for fisheries management. And this is something that we need to address also. We also try to integrate the post-set measure activities to most of the activity and capacity building in the region. We also think that it's very important to improve technology and science to meet fisheries needs, such as monitoring fishing canoes. We know in West Africa that a lot of fleets are from canoes, and these canoes it's very, very difficult to monitor them, and they are creating a lot of pressure on the resources. Resources to address them. So we also think that it's important as a region to increase regional approach in ocean and resource management. From now, we are seeing many projects coming at the national level, but we realize that when it comes to fisheries management, this approach that consists to only focus on national management will not be very efficient. So we think that we should increase regional approach in fisheries management. That will be create more impact on the sustainability of the resources and the ocean. So globally, we still continue working because we think that to achieve our objective of sustainable management of the resources, we need to work with people. We need to improve and collaborate with people. We need to manage people that are involved in the system. It could be national level, it could be regional level, it could be international level. We need to bring people together and create awareness that there is a need for them to work closely to address sustainability of the ocean, because the ocean is the source of most of our resources. Natural, our needs can be satisfied through the ocean. So we need to protect the ocean together in this way. So on this note, I would like to thank you for the opportunity given to me to introduce what we are doing in West Africa, mainly in fisheries management, also in combating IUU fishing to achieve the protection and the safe of the ocean. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Chirpin. That's highly appreciated indeed. I would like, I do have a couple of questions for the panelists, but before I ask those, I would like to see if it's possible for the host, the organizers, to unmute so we can just have a short round of applause for the fantastic dynamic presentations we just had. Would that be possible? Unmute it.
Yes, it is. I think we have a couple more presentations, right?
I fully understand, but I would like to do one here in the mid, just to keep the energy going in the room.
Doing that right now. Unmuting everything.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I just realized, having been sitting through a couple of these sessions already, it can be a little long, 2 hours, to not be interacting at all. So I think it was a good thing to have a short break. Okay, but anyway, I do have a couple of questions here, and I'm just going to ask to both the two panelists here that we just heard from, if there are any activities underway, planned, or even under implementation that you think that you have identified that will contribute directly to the SDG 14 implementation or to the UN Decade of Ocean Science. Didi, you want to go first?
Yes. As I mentioned in my presentation, we recently developed a regional fisheries management plan, which is a key instrument for us to promote all related to fisheries. And we think that if all the countries are able to adopt a management decision that will, let's say, take care of the resources itself and also to protect the environment, of course, we may reach the sustainable goal that we are aiming to do. Also, we all are aware that we recently adopted the post-test measure agreement through FAO, and all the countries, as I mentioned in my region, are about to ratify this instrument. And from now, we have 5 countries out of the 6 that have ratified the document, and now we are moving to the implementation of this instrument. So we think that if together we are able to address all the requirements that is under the post-test measure agreement, of course, we reach the sustainable goal that we want to achieve. So for us, these are the key areas that we are focusing to. Lastly, I will say, and that is cross-cut issues, as coming from a developing country, all these instruments we are very concerned, all these management documents we are concerned, but we still need resources to implement them. And this is very important. And these resources goes with capacity building. Without capacity, we cannot take decision, we cannot take action to address what we want to do. So capacity building or sustainable management of the resources and the ocean is the key for me.
Okay, thank you. So you actually answered my next question as well, but that's fine. Niana, do you have any input to this as well? Are there any activities that you are planning that you have identified as being directly contributing to the SDG 14 implementation and or to the UN Decade of Ocean Science you would like to highlight?
Okay, thank you. So one of the main activities related to the tripling the surface of marine protected area, this Promise of Sydney initiative is still underway. It's a big initiative where we start it is linked to the implementation of the marine spatial planning in Madagascar. But marine spatial planning is quite a huge activity. We started with doing this marine conservation planning first to identify areas to cover this triplet of marine protected area. And that is just not a marine protected area as an ACN category, I mean, but that consider as well the other category of other effective area-based conservation measures, such as LMEs, locally managed marine area, which is quite a promising model here in Madagascar, and where that can contribute, even conservation measure is quite implicit, that can really contribute in on that. And apart from that, of course, implementing this marine spatial planning is a big and complex initiative, because all of the other sectoral activities already implemented their activities in Madagascar, such as petroleum block, such as mining block, etc. And we are still, and there is overlap of initiative. That means that requires many negotiation in order to identify and prioritizing important ecosystem to be conserved with MPA. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So this is very interesting, and I find it particularly interesting that both of these two investments, these very local, but yet, I mean, with the regional spread and integration perspective here, has focused on the governance itself, which is we hear it a lot, and our projects for the GF have a big effort focus on securing, supporting, stimulating, catalyzing governance in all these different phases, from data collection all the way through to policy making. And so it's very interesting that these are the two things that you're highlighting here. Well, I would like to jump to the next two panelists, just so we have a little bit of time for questions. But maybe before I do that, if there's any specific questions from the audience to these two panelists, something on maybe as a follow-up to what we just heard, then I think now would be a good time. We will spend 4, 5, 10 minutes on this maximum. Mish, I do not have an overview of what has come in. Do you have any idea?
I would, thank you, Chris. I would encourage the audience to post a question in either the chat or the Q&A. We can see them both, and we'll read them out to Chris and the panelists. So please, all of you, this is the moment.
Okay, so if there's nothing at this time, I'll just move along with the next two presentations, and then we'll capture it at the end. I think then we have a little bit of time. We still have very good 66 participants. That's fantastic. Keep it up. I'm telling you, we will be tap dancing at the end, so please stay on. Okay, so let me see. So round two. So here we have, first we're going to hear from Laverne Walker, Deputy Project Coordinator of the UNDP Caribbean Large Marine Ecosystem Plus project based in Cartagena. Laverne.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. So next slide. Yeah, so my presentation is actually in three parts. The first part, I give a very brief overview of the CLME project, but I want to pause and ask, do any of you wish you were on this beach right now? Because I sure wish I was on this beach. So next slide, Mitch. What is the CLME Plus region? The CLME Plus region actually constitutes two large marine ecosystems, the Caribbean and the North Brazil Shelf large marine ecosystem. And these two large marine ecosystems are bordered by 26 countries and 18 overseas territories. The Gulf of Mexico also is next to the Caribbean large marine ecosystem, but it's not part of the project. The project identified a number of issues impacted negatively on the marine environment, and these are unsustainable fisheries, habitat degradation, and marine pollution. And we sought to try and find out what were causing these issues. And a number of root causes were defined, and for the purpose of this presentation, I presented two: inadequate access to data and information, and inadequate consideration of the value of ecosystems, goods, and services. So taking a lot of these things into consideration, the region sought to develop a 10-year strategic action program, 2015 to 2025, to improve their marine environment for the benefits and livelihoods of the people of the region. To date, this strategic action program has been endorsed at the political level by 26 countries and 8 overseas territories. So this action program actually forms the framework for the rest of my presentation. It is actually what the UNDP GEF project that I am working on is seeking to assist the region implement. And it is what I am going to show how the staff and the project is assisting the region achieve the sustainable development goals and support the UN decade of ocean science. So I will be presenting a number of examples. The first example that I am going to speak about, and I apologize for the noise, is a regional plan of action on illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing that was adopted by the Western Central Atlantic Fisheries Commission in July 2019. This regional action plan is being used to guide the development of model national plans on IU fishing that the countries will then take to develop their own national fisheries management plan. And these are also linked to the sport-based measures. The staff also talked about the implementation of science-based management plans, and we have a number of regional management plans that were developed for economic fisheries in the region. And of course, the region will then utilize those to develop national fisheries management plans at the country level. Both of these support SDG 14.4. Another example that I am going to speak about is the development of a state of the marine environment and associated economies report. This reporting mechanism seeks to somehow institutionalize the transboundary diagnostic analysis that many of you may be familiar with. We are already aware that many organizations in this region are actually doing their own state of report. So the purpose is to amalgamate this so that there is a sense to know what we're talking about. We are also seeking to assist with other regional strategies and action plans, and we are working with one of our partners, UN Environment, the Cartagena Convention, to develop a strategy on marine habitat and nutrients, and they support a number of SDGs, as can be listed 14.1, 14.2, 14.5, and 14.7. We acknowledge that this region that I'm working in is a data poor region. And so we are also working with another partner to actually identify research priorities and research gaps coming out of these state of reports and strategies. And this is for a research agenda where we will identify research priorities that need to take place so that we could better have informed decisions at the region. And we are hoping that this will all come together through something called a CLME Plus Hub, where this will pull all the information that I am presenting, where our countries, our partners can come together and get this information. This information actually was presented as part of the LME Learn newsletter for World Ocean Day. So, Mitch, I'm giving you a plug here. So, if you want to learn more about the hub and what it works like, please read the newsletter. The last part of my presentation actually is on what is happening at the community level, acknowledging again that what I presented earlier was more at the LME level and at the country level, but we acknowledge that communities play a major role in implementing a lot of what is happening. So I'm going to give a number of examples on how the project is seeking. One of the examples that I am presenting is the development of a civil society action program called People Managing Oceans. This was developed by the civil society for civil society, and it outlines their priorities as to what they believe are critical for their, so that they can support management of our marine resources. And you can see science is also involved. Citizen science, citizens play a role. They play a role in management. And this is what the next example is showing. Another example also being supported with by Athena Convention Secretariat in Trinidad and Tobago, working with communities to actually address pollution issues through mangrove restoration. So we're trying to also promote the whole development of ecosystem-based management, how we can work together to have solutions. The project is also seeking to promote alternative and enhanced livelihoods. And the example shown here is the work we have done in St. Kitts and Nevis with communities, where we have provided guidance to them through the entire value chain process for seamoss farming. So assisted them with the growing, the harvesting, the production, and the marketing, giving people an ability to control what they're doing. This example is showing what is happening in Central America to assist small-scale fishers with their own fisheries by improving their gear so that they can have a more sustainable fishery, and trying to obtain information on the fishery so that they can have better policy and management decisions. And also, we acknowledge that gender is becoming more and more important globally and also regionally. Our region does not have a lot of information on gender at this point in time. So we're working with one of our partners, FAO, in the North Brazil Shelf countries, to actually try and develop a gender policy for fisheries. And this is showing basically community consultation with people on this matter. So thank you very much for listening, and I apologize profusely for the background.
Thank you. I think you did very well, and thank you for the invitation. We will all be on that beach. If you make sure it's corona-free, then we'll be there, I'm sure. There'll be 73 people there in a couple of weeks. So if you make those arrangements, that'll be excellent. Vivian, I want to turn to you now. So to jump from the Caribbean all the way to the Benguelan current commission and the LME around there.
Greetings everyone from Swakopmund. My name is Vivian Kinyaga from the Benguela Large Marine Ecosystem. I will be sharing with you our experiences on how we link science and management between local level and the LME level. The focus of the presentation mainly would be the link between national and transboundary level, and then I will also touch a little bit on community action. Next. Our LME is shared by 3 countries, being Angola, Namibia, and South Africa. And these 3 countries, if you look at the map there, the Africa map, we are in the southern corner, or the southwestern corner, the part in yellow. The 3 countries have agreed to manage transboundary resources at a larger objective of balancing human needs with conservation imperatives. And this is through Convention, an environmental treaty that was signed by the 3 countries in 2013. However, prior to the signing of the treaty, the countries have been working together for, I think, about 15 years. What makes this convention unique is that it is based on a multi-sectoral approach. What brings the parties together is mainly through our organizational structure. If you see there, we've got a secretariat where I am based in Swakopmund that's responsible for coordinating function, and we've got committees at the bottom of the slide that are mainly responsible for the technical input, and then the commission and the ministerial conference for policy decision making. In the next slides, I will talk a little bit more about the committees. The most important committee when it comes to science is the Ecosystem Advisory Committee that is responsible for research and long-term monitoring. And a key output there is to enhance the understanding of the ecosystem status and change, and then to make recommendations on management measures to the Commission and the Ministerial Conference. And how we work, the EAC at the regional level is responsible for prioritizing monitoring indicators, harmonizing monitoring approaches between the three countries, important capacity development, and to produce a state of marine ecosystem report, which we do on every 4th year. At the national level, the parties or the countries themselves are responsible for the execution of the monitoring program, for sharing data and information so that we can use that to compile the state of the ecosystem at the LME level. And then the countries are also using science to inform policy decisions. How we work is that we establish working groups. So the science work is driven by the working groups. During this phase of the GF support, we have prioritized the following areas, being pollution, fisheries, top predators, and so forth. I will come back to those. I also wanted to highlight that we have established a compliance committee in 2018. And if you look at the two circles there, the Ecosystem Advisory Committee is responsible for the science, whereas the Compliance Committee is responsible for policy and enforcement of regulations. And then all this feeds back to the Commission and the Ministerial Conference. What's important is that the Commission and the Ministerial Conference is not just a few people that we are working with, but that they form a very important link between the BCC and the parties at a wider level. That, for example, decisions that we take, it's through the Ministerial Conference that they reach the Parliament and so forth. I also wanted to highlight some accomplishments. In terms of fisheries, we have developed stock assessment models to inform sustainable fisheries practices. We've developed some management plans for key fisheries stocks. We have a draft framework that is currently under discussion on managing the priority fish stocks at the transboundary level. And when it comes to top predators, which are important key species, we've expanded the species to include other marine mammals, which we have not been doing in the past. We just recently this year updated the IUCN Red List on endangered species. We are also looking at coastal pollution, where we've identified pollution hotspots and sources. We've developed a monitoring program, and now we are in an initial stages to develop standards for coastal water quality together with the private sector, and we are quite excited about this because it's our first real experience with the private sector. We are also working or collaborating with IMO through the GWACAF project on oil spills management. Last year, we have facilitated training programs in that regard. And at the moment, we are busy undertaking an oil spill risk assessment at national level and regional level. And this forms baseline for the oil spill contingency plan that we are working on. In terms of coastal biodiversity, this is something new for the BCC. We've harmonized monitoring approaches between Namibia and South Africa to look at the biodiversity of the intertidal zone, something that we've not done before. And this is mainly to inform environmental management plans and EIA processes. At the local level, there are just two examples that I wanted to highlight, that in Angola, we are working at the community level to implement or to enhance enforcement of regulations because government has limited capacity to enforce regulations at the local, and for that we're supporting the government and community partnerships. And in South Africa, we're working on estuary management, where we've brought together different stakeholders that are responsible for monitoring one of the local estuaries there. I'm not sure why my slides are going so fast, but I wanted to conclude with a summary of the project that I'm managing, which is the BCLME3 project. My boss said I cannot not mention this because the BCC do appreciate the contribution that we are making. Basically, what I want to highlight there is that most of the policy support that I have spoken about is being supported by the BCLME3 project, and we are also playing a critical role in developing the capacity of the various BCC structures for them to implement the strategic action program. We have established the compliance committee, so we are supporting the BCC in putting together all those regulatory frameworks and to strengthen the link between science and governance. As I said, we are excited about getting the private sector and communities involved, and then also supporting the organization to put up policies in place for institutional sustainability. Thank you. It feels like a real picture kucha.
It was a real pleasure, Jen. Thank you so much for that. And I want to do the same as we did before. If I could have everybody unmuted for a little second, so we can just applaud the second panel here. That'd be fantastic. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Vivian. And it's a very busy time doing these picture kuchas when you do it on a stage. But I will say I think it works fantastic. And so thank you so much for playing along with that to all four of you. I do have a couple of questions. I would like to ask Laverne this here. If she would just list 3 lessons. If you could tell us 3 lessons that you think the global community, that includes both the UN Ocean Decade of Ocean Science as well as the SDG implementation process, can pick up and replicate from the implementation of the LME SAP that you are working on. Just 3 lessons.
Thank you very much, Chris. So the first lesson, I think I've said before, and you generally like to hear, ensure that we basically engage other sectors from very early on. That's important. And for us, the lesson is we sought to engage civil society and private sector later. We have fully engaged civil society, but we're still struggling with the private sector. So that was a lesson that we have learned and are still learning. An issue in relation to work with countries to support their existing commitments. So a lot of countries already have commitments that they need to meet, and the whole issue of putting new commitments on them may be something difficult because, and that leads me to the third point as well. It's important that the global communities better coordinate on their reporting requirements for their member states and for the countries, because countries have at least indicated to ourselves that they are already overwhelmed. Within our region, countries have a number of reporting responsibilities, and you find that every organization is developing reporting frameworks for the countries on their commitments. But if we all come together and we have a more integrated reporting framework, it would be easier for us and the countries in how we are more efficient and in how we move forward. So that's some 3 that came to mind.
Great. And I'm hoping that, of course, you're going to be writing up a little experience note on that so we can put it on our wonderful I Have Learned website, because this is excellent. Thank you so much for volunteering. And Vivian, to you, I would like to ask you another question here. So you're, if you will, you're the end user of science for management, or trying to make this bridge between ocean science to inform policy decisions. Do you have any specific examples that you can provide and share with us? And how have you done that? It's working from science to policy.
The example that I would like to share is from fisheries. where the 3 countries that we are working with already have the TAC system, the total allowable catches. And what we have done at the BCC level, because we are promoting an ecosystem-based approach, we have undertaken research to confirm which fish stocks are shared between the. It's not necessarily that you find the same species across the Benguela marine ecosystem. There are some that are shared between Namibia and Angola, and others that are shared between South Africa and Angola, others that spawn in one country and then they move to another country. So the BCC has undertaken years of research just to understand the behavior of the different fish species. And we've made management recommendations, or actually through we have few working groups that are looking at the different fish stocks. They have made management recommendations to the Commission. And what we've learned is that the countries have requested to discuss these management recommendations at the country level before taking it to the regional level and hopefully them. So our experience has been that the science takes a long time, but also to come up with the management responses and have those adopted also takes a long time. And that is one of the processes that the BCLME3 project is currently supporting the BCC to facilitate.
Thank you so much. No, you're absolutely right. This is one of the reasons that very few institutions investing in marine governance and management should only go in. They should not go in there for 2 or 3 years. These are long-term processes. It takes a long time. I mean, your case there is a very good example of that, where 20 years of investments that actually now is leading to the place where you have built the trust and you have the science and you're actually starting to formulate all these policies across the region. So, and again, I really look forward to seeing these things written up in these very nice little experience notes for the IWL website and community. I know we have been getting a few questions from the floor. Let me just see if I can find them. Mish, maybe let me see. I got one here.
We have a number of questions, Chris.
Okay.
One from Mark, let me go in reverse actually. Mark Capron, I hope I'm saying that right, which is, how might ecosystem-based management sustain or even improve ocean biodiversity and production in tropical waters as fish migrate toward the poles due to warming? So I'm not sure if any of the panelists want to take that one. I can also read it again.
Please read it again.
How might ecosystem-based management sustain or even improve ocean biodiversity and production in tropical waters?
Anyone ready to jump in? It sounds like what you all are working on.
Yeah, I can give a start.
Maybe a tropical area, yes.
Yeah. So from our perspective in our region, we're promoting what we call ecosystem-based management and a system approach to fisheries. Acknowledging in our region that a lot of the fisheries, I'm going to use the fisheries example, a lot of our fisheries are basically coastal and near shore, which means that they are impacted by the status of our coastal waters and our near shore habitats. So we've already seen that that stress on our coastal waters through pollutants, whether they're increased nutrients or sedimentation, would negatively impact the coastal habitats that are important to support a number of fisheries. For example, spiny lobster, queen conch, these are normally found at some point in time in coral reefs or seagrass beds. So the whole pollution from nutrients and sediments have a negative impact on these fisheries and can reduce the population. So as a result, ecosystem-based management is seeking to actually not do certain things in silos so that we can have at least in our region, what we're seeking to do is to have the people working on pollution and the people working on habitat and the people working on fisheries management work in a more coordinated approach so that we can identify where the pollution hotspots are and how these pollution hotspots are actually seeking to impact negatively our marine habitats and how these habitats are impacting on our fisheries. So the intent is to work together and to try and address these things in a more integrated approach. So we think that that is a way ecosystem-based management could actually improve our species, our marine resources in our tropical area. Thank you.
Yana, do you have any perspectives of this question? Maybe not. Serapin, is this something you're working on too? Mish, and are there other questions?
Yes, maybe, and actually, Mark, you had asked a couple of other questions, but we'll come back to you. We'll take another one from John Brindley. Are there any specific technologies that your management groups do not have access to currently, but would enable easier, better, or more complete implementation of your LME management strategies? I'll say it again. Are there any specific technologies that your management groups do not have access to currently, but would enable easier, better, or more complete implementation of your LME management strategies?
Maybe, Misha, I could take that one just to start off with.
Sure.
I don't know which particular technologies would solve our challenge, but one of the things that we are really struggling with from our LME is on data and information management. It is something that has been coming along for many years, but we have not really gotten it right. Where we produce a state of marine ecosystem reports, as I have mentioned, but we would like to have those more as online systems, but we've not really been getting it right. It's something that we are still investigating.
Great, and John, I hope that clarified. We have another one from, sorry, I'm scrolling through here, from Alejandra Norete Hernandez. Greetings to you, by the way. To all panelists, I believe, but specifically to Laverne, which is, do you have information for the artisanal fisheries census available for Central American countries? First part of the question. And in which year was it done, and does it cover the Mesoamerican region?
So thank you very much for the question. At this point in time, I cannot necessarily answer the question, but I can speak to our one of our project partners, which is the Fisheries Organization for the Central American Fisheries System, FCWC, and to find out if that information is available. But I cannot respond to you, but it is something that was worked on. Whether it is final, I do not have that information.
Thank you, Laverne.
I wonder that same question. I would really like to hear from our two first presenters on the same question, because that is, as you said, it's a question that kind of again cuts across the entire set of presentations. So, Serapin, do you have any comments to that specific question Mish just highlighted?
Yes, on the technology issues, I would like just to say that, yes, it's, as my colleague just mentioned, to properly manage the resources, we need the current data. And we should be also able to analyze this data. And for technology, right now, we try from our region to use mobile phone software to let's say, collect timely the data and be able to manage them. And from now, it's difficult to have the appropriate software and also the tool to analyze them on time. And that needs a kind of capacity to be built also for the staff to be able to use it. And that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. When we talk also on VMS, vessel monitoring system, if we want to manage the resources, we need to be able to control all the vessels that are working. And on this point, management can give the area to be used for fishing and the area that needs to be protected. And the vessel monitoring system is one of the tools that can help to separate, or let's say to monitor all this activity within the framework of the ocean. So this system is very new in our region, and we are now pushing all the country to be able to access those tools, because you can take a decision and identify a protected area, but vessel can move there and spoil all the resources that is there. If you are not able to monitor this vessel and know that this vessel has been crossing the border that was given to him, or the area to be fished, it becomes another issue. So vessel monitoring system is the key to protect this area. Thank you.
Can I just before you, I know there's a couple of other questions that just came in, but there's just a follow-up question here. You mentioned data management or data collection, and then of course the management of that data. And I know that this pertains to all the 4 examples we have heard here. I'm really interested to hear how are these data collection, data management, data governance, if you will, how are these things, are they taken care of only at the project level, or are they mainstreamed into the ministries, which would then mean that the moment the project stops, they will continue to gather data in the countries? Is anyone can reflect on that?
Currently, in our case, most of the data, or actually almost all the data, is collected by the countries. And we are supporting them, obviously, with their data management systems at the country level. But what we are missing is a central system at the LME level where we bring all these important data together.
Yes, can I come in?
Yes, please, please.
Yes, for the data issues, yes, we used to say that data collection is the responsibility of the country. So what we do first is to build capacity of the staff at country level that can be able to regularly collect this data. And as my colleague said, if the data is collected nationally, we can gather the data at the regional level to analyze them and look at the trend within the region. And that has been able to be developed in my region with the support with FAO. And currently, we are regularly meeting with the head of the statistic of the country. And this is very important to see how far we are moving, if this resources is depleting or is also moving forward. And this analysis also is done also at other scientist boards that is set up by FAO, where the data is more analysis. In our region, we have what we call CCAF, which is also a platform set up by FAO, where we regularly, member country came with the data for further analysis and see the trend of the resources. So this is very important for management decision and policy.
Excellent, thank you so much. Mish, there's a couple of other questions came in.
Yes, there are a number of questions, and if I just can do some shameless marketing for the IWLearn project, we've been doing a little bit of work on data information management and trying to help Viviane a little bit. I know it's a long process, but we have a manual on data information management, suggested guidelines across LMEs globally, as well as a metadata catalog of available resources emanating from the LME portfolio. I put a link in the chat for you all to have a look at. So some shameless promotion from our IWLearn project. Now, there are indeed a number of other questions, a number of others from Mark, but actually, before we go to those, unless without objection, I'll go to Tom Woolley, who also asked about the construction noise at Laverna's place. But Tom's question is this. I'm hearing, oh, sorry, I'm reading his first comment. Apologies. I'm just scrolling back up. Yes. Are there any views on the severity of impact of climate change will have on fisheries, and what characterizes these impacts over what time period? How might the impact on communities be managed or minimized, So just again, are there any views from the panelists on the severity of the impact of climate change will have on fisheries, and what characterizes those impacts over what time period? And how might that be managed or minimized? Good question. And all of you are working on fisheries to one extent or another. So I guess.
Yeah, I can start with an example. Of course, there are climate change impacts that we will have on fisheries, but I'm going to give an example. I'm not sure if it's climate change, but we could say at least climate variability in some aspects. And it could be nutrients as well. So the Caribbean region, or the CLME Plus region right now, has been inundated with sargassum. And the sargassum actually is impacting negatively on a number of our economies, fisheries, tourism, etc. But it's found that it is actually impacting on a number of pelagic populations at this point in time. So people are not sure. There's still a lot of research going on as to why we are seeing all these sudden blooms of sargassum in our region. And these sargassum are not coming from the Sargasso Sea, but are actually coming up from the south, more between Brazil and Africa, that area. And we are, so in some years, you see a decrease in certain pelagic species, a decrease in catch in certain pelagic species like dolphin fish, etc. And some years you see an increase, and it seems that it is associated with how dense we are finding the sargassum mass in our region. So work is going on that right now. A lot of communities, so that is from a population perspective, but from a fishing community perspective, there are a number of communities that cannot go out to fish because of the whole issue of the sargassum, because their boats cannot go out, because their engines get clogged up on the sargassum, they cannot exit their ports, they cannot land their fish, etc. So these things are having a negative impact in our region, and as I said, work is being done right now to try and figure out how integratedly it is linked with climate change. It could be climate change, climate variability, and other aspects as well. Thank you.
From our side, I do not have the precise answer, but we do have another GEF-supported project through FAO that is particularly looking at the impact of climate change on the fishery sector. But really, I don't have their findings at this stage.
Yes, on this point, as we are talking about the next action to be taken, I will say for the West African region that such kind of study to understand the impacts of the climate change in the fisheries or the environment, it should be something very important. Because as far as I know, I don't have a dedicated study on this topic. We have been discussing in this region through different partners, but having a complete study on this topic, and I think this is something we can consider to understand more. But if you go to the local community, you always hear people that many things have changed, stock, because if you consider some migratory stocks that periodically come at the region, they will tell you that now we don't receive this kind of species and so forth. But this is not really based on a scientist-based study. It's just communities information that we are gathering like this. And this need to be deeply addressed to be considered in such kind of framework. Thank you.
I just wonder, Nyanya, are you still there with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Do you have any comments to any of these questions?
Okay, I don't have yet a result of study related to the impact of climate change, but pragmatically, when I went on field, how the impact of drought can affect the mangrove ecosystem and that can affect the local community who cannot have like that can impact their agriculture, for example, and they rely on mangrove after that to ensure their livelihood. So it is like there is this connection between the rain with mangrove ecosystem, with agriculture and the local community. So if there is climate change, that can affect the whole system, and that we can see first with this very vulnerable population first, the impact of this change on climate. Yeah, thank you.
There, just if you are working specifically, or since you are working specifically on these issues, there are two projects that are two bigger investments that did some really stellar models. One called CCRES that was working on the models for how so financial models, how do the local community actually benefit from all these coastal resources. The other one was the Blue Forest that was working on all the blue forest ecosystems, as well, so mangroves and seagrass and so forth, and also looking at the economic modeling. I'll make sure to send you those links, on the side, just for your information. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I can also post links to those two projects in the chat, which I'll do in a second. But before we do that, and just to get a little bit away from the fish for a second, one of Mark Capron, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, earlier questions was, does capacity building include building reef ecosystems in areas of excess nutrients to effectively use the excess nutrients for primary productivity while maintaining dissolved oxygen levels? So again, does capacity building include building reef ecosystems in areas of excess nutrients to effectively use the excess nutrients for primary productivity while maintaining dissolved oxygen levels? Does anybody want to venture into that one?
I do not think that we've been that innovative as yet in our region. I can say that at this point in time, we are working with one of our partners, the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, to actually define ecosystem-based investment plans. And what they're looking at, they're doing an assessment of areas where they perceive to be hotspots, from pollution hotspots. And these pollution hotspots are not being perceived as, at this point in time, opportunities, but they're being perceived as problems because we note that it would be difficult at this time to actually promote coral regeneration in these areas, because first there would need to be a lot more, at least in this region, there would need to be a lot more focus on cleaning the waters, because coral reefs do not generate in nutrient-rich waters. Coral reefs in the Caribbean only grow very well in nutrient-poor waters. So the focus would be first on trying to clean the source of the pollution, and then once that happens, we would then focus on how we can regenerate the coral reef. But I do not think that we are as innovative, at least in our region, where coral reefs do not actually thrive in nutrient-poor waters, that we will actually seek to do this at this point in time. But if he has ways and innovative means on how this can be done, please feel free to share the links to that information. It would be interesting to see. Thank you.
Yes. For by region, we also used to promote the use of mangrove forests in the coastal region. That's able to stabilize the coastal region, but also create a better environment for the resources to rebuild the stock. So this is something that we are is also well promoted in some of the country in Gulf of Guinea. That's the little thing I would like to add on this point.
Mish.
Thank you, panelists, for those answers. We now are going to try an actual live audience question, I believe. It is going to be technologically possible for Naji, Lazar, who is from the URI's Coastal Resource Center. Sorry, I don't have your title quite correct in Morocco, but if you could like to ask your question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Or introduce yourself as well would be good.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, my name is Naji Lazar. I'm a senior fisheries advisor at the Coastal Resource Center at the University of Rhode Island, and would like to ask this question maybe to all the panelists, anybody wishes to answer that. Wonder if you all feel that the LMEs projects and also the UN-based SDG 14, the UN Decade for Ocean Science for Sustainable Development have all made enough progress to include the artisanal fisheries or other small-scale fisheries in other countries in their quest for sustainable ocean management, since they all account for more than 60% of the total production in both quality and value, and they also provide more than 90% of the jobs on global scale, I think particularly in the West Africa. So I'm wondering, whether there is enough focus from the LME side, from the SDG, on the artisanal fisheries. Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yes, Negi, I'm happy to hear from you. We are together in West Africa, and I'm pleased to mention that, yes, looking at the fisheries management in West Africa, I will quietly say that the small-scale fisheries and artisanal fisheries is not well addressed in the global management of fisheries sector. And the USAID Sustainable Management Project was a pilot project to involve the small-scale fishermen communities in the fisheries management globally. And in this view, I will say that no, they are not really involved as it should be, because they are the key players in this area. And through the management plan and action that we are developing, we are trying as much as possible to involve them deeply so that they will contribute in the sustainability of the resources, but also address the need to contribute in this process. So basically, that's what I would say.
From our end at the Caribbean and Northern Shelf Large Marine Ecosystem Project, I am going to say that from our LME perspective, we are very involved and integrated small-scale fisheries in our approach, because small-scale fisheries is still the predominant form of fisheries in our region. So they are taken into consideration. A lot of consultation does happen with small-scale fishers. I think one of the few industries that have industrial fishing is shrimp and groundfish, and that is only in the Northern Shelf. But we see a lot of small-scale fisheries who focus on a number of other types of fisheries. So they have always been involved and they have always been integrated. And I was just on a webinar this week on a small-scale fisheries project called Too Big to Ignore.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually done for the region to focus on work there. So they are integrated and they do have a voice in our region.
Great, thank you.
There's a general question here to everyone on the role of MPA, or MPAs as a tool for fisheries co-management. How do you use that? Is it a passive tool? Is it something you use actively? Is it used? To what extent? If you can reflect a little bit, that would be fantastic. Maybe go to Madagascar first.
Okay. Yeah. MPA of first. We have this big commitment to triple the surface of MPA here in Madagascar. Of course, we already identified the potential area for that, but once identified, we need as well to develop capacity of park manager to ensure the effectiveness. It is not just creating, but managing is another big part of work. So that's why we try to improve and develop tools to support the management of MPA. For example, developing measuring effectiveness tracking tool to monitor the effectiveness of MPA. And there are many tools already developed, but we already try to standardize all of these tools in order to make more effective and compare the effectiveness of marine protected in Madagascar. But apart from that, I want to point out that, and that is linked to Naji's question. I think the involvement of artisanal fishermen, small-scale fishermen, is key on the in the good achievement of the objective. And in Madagascar, I think there are emerging models from bottom up, like the locally managed marine area here in Madagascar. And we try to include these new promising area as well within the achievement of tripling the marine protected area, even though that is not completely a conservation initiative. Sometimes conservation is implicit. It is not really explicit like MPA. We find anyway that all of these areas are very have a big potential to achieve this big commitment of tripling the marine protected area. So I think the whole system, we need to have this large view of what is MPA, protected area in a large view, and not just a strict protection, but that can be open to promising initiative like locally managed marine area. So that is the situation in Madagascar, how we can include as well these initiatives within the system, and how we can develop tools to improve the effectiveness of its management. Thank you.
Thanks for the music. Thanks for the answer. Is there any other reflections from either the Caribbean, the Guinea Current, or from Southern Africa?
From West Africa, the MPA is well recognized as a management tool for sustainable management of the fisheries and also the area. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to go through all the process to establish the such kind of management plan. The discussion is still ongoing in some countries, like Ghana. But it's ability to be shared the responsibility in managing the resources in their area. But for a full process, identify the marine protected area is for now is the key in our region. We haven't really completed the process because there's many things that's going on. We need such kind of systems should be put in place on effective science based. It's not just a decision to be taken like this. We should go through a science study that really identify the area and also the capacity of the community and the population around to really take part in the process. And that is sometimes very difficult to find the right way to move forward. But the idea is well shared in the region, but we haven't moved forward in it.
Okay, I believe that Miss is contemplating a new set of questions. But are we going to do you have one more before we go to another last question?
I wanted.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Please.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make a quick comment based on someone is waving at me. Based on the Namibian experience, not really from LME approach, is that in Namibia we have allocated some marine protected areas. I do not have the exact percentage, but in terms of the SDG targets, we obviously would want to increase on those. But we are currently busy with our blue economy policy, where MPA has been recognized as one of the management tools for blue economy.
That was very good, and thank you so much for mentioning these blue economy plans, because that's another management response that's been talked a lot about, but I haven't heard so much talk about it today. So whenever we're done with the next, I know there's a couple of questions coming, but then if you could let us know a little bit later before we close up how you're working on establishing or formulating blue economy plans, that would be very interesting. Mish.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, just to shake things up a little bit, we have a question to be asked by Ivica Trumbic, who was our Jeff LME Learn Chief Technical Advisor. Ivica, are you able to speak?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mish. Well, I wanted to ask a question which I'm sure it's in the back of everyone's mind. We've been talking about the coastal economy and ocean economy. I want to hear the reflection of the panelists of the impacts of COVID, positive and negative, can have on coastal and marine ecosystems, as well as coastal and marine economy. You know that these are not going to be short-term effects; they may be long-term. So it would be interesting to hear if in your project initiatives you have started to consider these changes that are going to be with us for some time.
Okay, you start.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. So I mentioned that I was participating. I mean, I cannot talk about my project specifically, but I can talk about what our project partners are working on at this point in time in this region. So earlier this week on World Ocean Day, there was a panel discussion put on by Too Big to Ignore on the impact of COVID on the fishing sector. And it was interesting to hear from fisher folk organizations as well, and from a regional fisheries body on that impact. So fishers indicated that due to the quarantine, a number of them were unable to go out to sea for a number of days, and of course it impacted negatively on their ability to provide revenue for their own livelihood. They also indicated that whereas they also looked at the whole issue of marketability. So whereas many people may prefer to actually purchase fish in a more local or regional aspect because of markets and trade, these prices of the stock would tend to be, of those products, would be higher than other products that would come from afar. And because in many instances trade has stopped because of COVID, it was actually at times difficult for certain people to access certain fish products. Another thing that I found very interesting was that the fisher folk person spoke about that at least in some of the Caribbean islands, fisher folk were not perceived to be, were not deemed to be, what is the word? An essential service. And as a result of that, so they, from an economic perspective, so the government did not provide them with any potential incentives, and they were suffering. And they felt that they, in that aspect, were an essential service. They provide food to a number of the people. So they felt that the government should perceive the work that they're doing in such a way that they could help them through the COVID pandemic. So that was actually an interesting lesson that I got from listening on
Yes, my colleague mentioned already the issue of market access, all these things. I would like to mention the impact of the COVID on the inspectors, on the inspection of the vessels. Because with the lockdown, for instance, some of the inspectors, fishing inspectors that were going to inspect the vessel or the fish at the port was not able to work properly as it was. So it creates a kind of gap. And also some of the vessels, from what we learned from the fishing industry, from the fisheries, some of the vessels did not allow for a time some of the inspectors to come on board because of the fear, the fact that people will be coming in with the disease. That's one thing. Also, for the observer working on the vessel, sometimes they have to move from a country to another one. And then when observer is taken, for instance, from a country B and cross the border with the vessel to go and go to another country C, let's say you have to come back from plane or from by road. And due to the close of the barrier, the borders among the country of this region, it's difficult now to the observer to go on board and do properly their work. So we realize that we are assuming that this context will increase illegality in the fishing activities, because the vessel will not be inspected as it should be, and also the observer will not be on board, and sometimes we can feel that many things illegal can happen on the field. So that is let's say a negative aspect for the fishing management.
Thank you.
I would like to add on coastal tourism, now that we've spoken about fisheries, which is a key in our region. If you look outside now, at the coast, we are back to lockdown stage 1. I'm actually not even supposed to be in the office. So what happened is that initially we had the first lockdown, and then we opened up, so local tourists were at least able to move around, and we had some public holidays. So I think that was helping with local tourism, but then linking it to fisheries, which is actually interesting because we are at the coast. We experienced some new COVID cases that came in through fishing vessels, and because of that, now we are under total lockdown again. So that obviously affects then the fishing industry, it affects the coastal tourism, and yeah, so things are really, really quiet at the moment. But in terms of our operations, I also wanted to talk a little bit about that, because we are an LME that heavily rely on communication between 3 countries. And it's really new for our member states now to rely on virtual communication, which is something totally new that we have to introduce. And also where we were doing some of our activities together as a region, we now have to see what we can do best at the national level, and then see how we then harmonize amongst the 3 countries. So COVID-19 is also just teaching us how to change our operations and do things differently. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple more, 2 more questions, right? Then we'll have to wrap up. Mish, who's the next one on?
Right. So thanks, Chris. Actually, JP Walsh, one of our co-organizing partners, and the host actually of today's webinar. JP.
Thanks a lot, Mish. Thanks to all the presenters. I had a question for Niaina and probably Laverne, specifically about the impact of events like tropical cyclones and how they are impacting coastal communities, either tourism or fisheries infrastructure. So maybe you could speak briefly to that concern.
Sorry, JP. Can you repeat? I was the people were contacting me again about the construction, so I was trying to listen to their message. So can you please repeat?
Yeah, no problem. I was just asking if you could speak to the challenges of short-term events like tropical cyclones and how they impact are impacting the coastal communities, in particular tourism and/or fisheries infrastructure?
Okay, so well, in our region, we are very prone to tropical cyclones, and this year we've actually had, we've been informed that it's going to be a more, a season with higher and more, and bigger storms. So the impact obviously tends to be a bit negative from all the economies that we depend on, tourism and fisheries. A lot of our infrastructures, especially in the city, tend to be coastal. So from the ports, the air and the seaports, the hotels, the fisheries ports, these are all along the coast. So if you have very strong seas and large swells coming in, there tends to be negative impact a lot on these infrastructure during the storm. And as a result of that, a lot of these economies suffer from tourism. Hotels have to shut down for a week, sometimes even months, if they're impacted negatively, if certain parts of the hotel is damaged. A lot of times fishers lose boats, they lose gear, they lose engines, and they need to be somehow compensated. So that is something that the governments also look at. The interesting thing now, especially with this forecast during the times of COVID 2019, I can tell you that this region is very on edge as to what is to be expected from the 2020 hurricane season, because globally, the world is facing a recession already, and this is the case for a number of the countries in this region that actually depend heavily on tourism. And then you bring in the whole impact of a possible damage from a hurricane, from a storm, to the coastal infrastructure, to coastal communities. So people are very wary and are hoping for the best, hoping that the forecasters are actually wrong and that this year the season is not too bad, because the impact will be devastating if it is. Sorry for the bad news, but I guess that's the reality.
Maybe, is there a second for Niaina to add a comment on Madagascar, how the impact of cyclones there?
Okay, yeah, I think in Madagascar, cyclone, even though sometimes I think it is not, the population is quite already resilient with cyclones. It is not itself a big issue. The other disease brought by disease, the main issue. For example, Madagascar, there is a cycle of 10-year cyclone where the intensity is much higher. But for the regular cyclone, that is not very impactful. In the contrary, sometimes for the arid region, they really like that there is cyclone, because that can bring enough water for them and for the ecosystem. So they are quite, I think, resilient in terms of infrastructure, in terms of facing the cyclone here in Madagascar. The main threat, I think, is climate change, where that can change the situation. For example, the intensity of a cyclone become more stronger, and sometimes that can change because we have in Madagascar for bioclimatic region, and depending on the situation, the more I think the arid part of Madagascar who is rarely touched by the cyclone, I mean, they really appreciate this supply on rain when there is cyclone. But for tourism, coastal, the coastal, I mean, ecotourism, it's not yet really developed in Madagascar. There is a case of region who have developed their tourism activities, but there is not they are rarely touched by the cyclone. That means they are less vulnerable on that cyclone. But for the south region, the part where cyclone can bring impact, they are quite already quite resilient population who I think it's not the main issue there, but maybe the other drought or flood brought by the cyclone that can be a big challenge for them. I'm sorry for I don't know if I can explain quickly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mish, we have one final question.
Yes, the final question goes to Mr. Christopher Corbin, of the Cartagena Convention, I should say, UN Environment's Caribbean Environment Program. He asks, we are slowly seeing greater consideration of pollution in fisheries management and habitat restoration efforts in LMEs. And the question is, what has been the main pollution issue being used, for example, to engage fisheries stakeholders? Yes.
Can you repeat the last?
Yes.
Can you repeat the last part?
So the last part is, what has been the main pollution issue being used, for example, to engage fisheries stakeholders?
And here, I think it would be good if we get a short response from the four panelists, and then maybe if there's a wrap-up comment, because this is going to be probably the closing. So we start with you, Serafin.
Yes, of course, the pollution is very important, but to address them, it's important to see the source of the pollution. If we consider in West Africa, for instance, pollution due to gas and oil extraction, that will be difficult to be managed by the community, for instance. But if the pollution is coming from the community itself, then we can take reaction to address them, like plastics and all these things. And in some of the countries, mainly in Ghana, we normally used to collect the plastic from the beach, all these things, to be sure that all the plastic that you use at the beach or in back at sea. So these are the kind of action that coastal community are committed and working together in some of the projects that are ongoing in the region. So yes, there's pollution, but we have to consider the type of pollution that community can be directly involved in for action. Local community, I mean. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important point in the local community. Laverne, have any reflections on this?
Yeah, I concur with the whole issue of solid waste. I think as well in our region that is also an issue with proper disposal of solid waste. Fishers see that a lot when they are going out to sea, and it also entangles in their fishing gear and stuff like that. And I think the whole issue of nutrients as well is another issue, because as I indicated, there are still many fisheries in our region that depend on healthy coral reefs, and nutrients have a negative impact to coral reefs. I would see these two issues.
Thank you. And Yanya from Madagascar.
I have not specific data about pollution, but here in Madagascar, we have an NGO working on whale conservation. We work by collecting and managing waste, specifically plastics in Madagascar. Its name is Setamada, and it is working as well on ecotourism, on whale watching. So of course they start to promote this waste management here in Madagascar, and I think they are gonna publish information about that soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, Vivian.
In my presentation, I indicated our exciting project of working with industry, private sector, mainly the fishing companies, on water quality issues around the discharge into the sea. Typically, the BCC had not been engaging the Department of Water Affairs because that was not considered as a key stakeholder. But what we've discovered is that the regulatory function in terms of discharge of water is with the Department of Water Affairs. And when we visited a number of fishing industries, they indicated to us that they do not have the standards or guidelines for discharge. So the industries discharge directly and there is no clear monitoring. So that's one area where we are coming in as a project to work on the standards and guidelines in coordination with the industry.
Thank you so much, and I'll take the liberty to thank all the participants, and the fact that we still have 41 eagerly listening attendees and posing a lot of questions. This has been the most lively session so far of the three that I've participated in, at least. I mean, there's a lot of questions, and I really thank you so much for all partaking in that. Before I close off, of course, we'll do the final round of applause before we just leave. But before that, I don't think we can capture all these and distill everything that's been said over the last 2 hours in a summary. But I do know that our dear host today, the University of Rhode Island and IWLearn, they're hosting a wonderful mingle drinks out on the deck where we can all meet. And I think we should continue the discussions out there. And then following that, it's going to be just a casual business, but a very nice sit-down dinner later tonight where we can continue the discussions. I hope that was the case, but that is not the case. But anyway, next time we meet, I hope that we can do that and we will have time to continue the deliberation. So thank you so much for participating. If you can open for everybody to applaud and say thank you so much. And I hope we see you all again on the 26th for the last session. Thank you so much.